Hi, this is Joseph. It's Wednesday, it's October 28th, and we're looking at the euro dollar. I'm going to make this video because I'd like to answer a lot of questions that I receive on a pretty regular basis. It usually is provoked by or initiated because someone sees a video on my website or on my YouTube channel, and then they're curious about how I'm using point and figure to find my day trades. I find that a lot of people who are somewhat familiar with point and figure, they tend to assume that it's used for, let's say, the larger time frames, right? The daily, the weekly, the monthly, and it is. It's a great tool for investors, but it can be used to day trade the currency pairs. And I've used point and figure for many years to day trade currencies. And it gives some really good opportunities on an intraday basis. So generally, I'm trying to get into my trades, or from the time that I get into the trades, I expect them to reach their take profit levels within, let's say, 30 minutes to a couple of hours. Sometimes I might get into a trade during the London session, and it won't reach the target until, let's say, the New York session. And we've all been there. We've all know, if you've traded for a while, you know how price sometimes can take a little while to really pick up another wave of momentum in whatever direction you're trading it in. And then sometimes economic data will even be the fuel that moves price to those take profit levels. So with point and figure is a really interesting concept for a lot of people. Again, when some people that aren't too familiar with it, when they look at it, they don't really want to look at it. I find that happens quite a bit. And then other people are really drawn to it and they want to know more. So again, that's why I wanted to make this video, to show you one of the ways that I found a couple of trades today. There are several different strategies that I use with point and figure. I actually teach my trading system in a trading course, but I use these methods with my trade copier. That's why I'm making this video. Is that you're probably interested in my trade copier, so you probably want to have a pretty good idea of who's going to be trading for you and what kind of trading system they're using with each one of those trades that are executed. So if you're familiar with the trade copier, whenever I execute a trade on my MT4 platform, the trade copier will duplicate that same trade into your MT4 account, and then at that point I manage the trade. So there's obviously some trade management that needs to go on. There's also quite a bit of waiting. If you look here where I'm moving my mouse, there's an area of consolidation or congestion right here at this level, right around the 1.1780 area. And it went on for a little while, and that was this morning. And then it finally broke down and took out that support. And you'll notice that with the point and figure, support and resistance is clearly defined. There is no making any mistake when I find a clear support and resistance level. I would say that one of the tips or tricks that you need to be aware of, it's kind of like a trick, right? I mean, with every business, with every profession, there's always tips and tricks. And this is no different. So one of the things that you need to be aware of is understanding the trading system so well, the one that you're using, whether it's point and figure, or whether it's candlestick patterns, things like that. You want to understand the trading system so well that you know when not to use it. There is a time and a place to use some of these strategies, and there's times and places to ignore certain signals. And inside of consolidation, when it gets pretty choppy, you need to know when to ignore certain signals, just as we saw was taking place here about a couple of days ago. This was a few days back. This is right around the 1.1840 area. So there was, a few little signals in here, but I was avoiding all of them. They really weren't going to go anywhere until I realized that we were in some kind of a new downtrend. Now, I'm going to show you another chart because it's a multiple. I use multiple forms of confirmation when I find my trades. My entries are on the point and figure, and my take profits are also on the point and figure. But to determine if we're in an uptrend, a downtrend, if we're in an area of accumulation or distribution, or reaccumulation or redistribution, and I apologize if you're not familiar with these terms. I do teach how to apply all these strategies to my trading system, but this is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to be looking at another chart. I'm going to show you that here in just a moment. And in that chart, what I'm actually doing is looking at euro futures. I'll talk about that in a moment, and I'm looking at volume. So volume is very important to me. You'll notice that there's no volume clip at the bottom here. There's no other indicators here. I'm just looking at point and figure. So again, point and figure is going to give me my entry. Point and figure helps me to find solidified areas of support and resistance. And the reason that it's important to me is that if I was to look at, let's say, some of these areas of support and resistance in here, if you were looking at a candle pattern, let's say a candlestick, sometimes you get that wick where it moves up and it looks strong, And if you're not watching volume, you can be a little bit confused. Sometimes there's that temptation to chase price when it starts to move up and it looks like it's breaking out a little out of a little area right here. So let's say at one point the previous week we were in an uptrend. So it would be easy to assume that this was likely to, let's say, resume that uptrend. But that's not the case. So again, you want to be aware of when to avoid these patterns. So because of these solidified areas of support and resistance, I'm not tempted to chase price where it could turn out to be some kind of a head fake move. That's one of the things that point and figure does. One of the things that it does for me is it helps me stay out of those head fake moves all of the time. It's amazing how effective it is. So again, I had a breakdown here. We'll talk about this in just a moment. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this trade here to the downside on the euro dollar. Okay, so now the setup. This is just one technique. And there's a couple of different tips that I want to share with you here. The first one is when I find the count to the downside. Now, again, I do teach how to find the count based on the data that's here in the point and figure charts. So I'm not going to break down. We can go into that. It'll take another 20, 30 minutes, and I'll keep this video short so that at least you get an idea of what I'm doing with the trade copier. When I'm trading to the downside, there's a tip that I want to share with you. And if you're going to use something like this, if you're going to use a method like this, it's something that you should probably keep in mind. The counts to the downside don't always hit their take profit levels. And that's very often because of the bullishness in some commodities, currencies, stocks, whatever it is that you're trading. So it's a good idea to take about 2/3 of the actual count. So initially, this had an entry of 68. You can see how it broke down right there and gave me that first zero just after that breaking through that support level. And at that point, I know I'm in the right direction and I can count these columns. And based on the construction method that I used to build this chart, that's how I calculate the count. And initially, it gave me a count of 5. So it was 117.05. But again, to the downside, what we want to do is take about 2/3 of what that actual count is, because they don't always hit the final count if we were to trade to the maximum. So you want to have a minimum count, and then you want to have, which is much more conservative, and then you want to have the actual count to see where they line up. Now, in situations like this, especially if you're looking back over here to the left, you can see where support is right around that 1700 level. I'm also going to target psychological levels. So taking 2/3 of the actual count with an entry of 68, my target was 32, and you can see how it broke down on that column right there. This was at approximately 4:36, right around 4 o'clock. That's California time. I'm in California, so I'm 3 hours behind New York. That's AM. That was today, the 28th. And it gives me an opportunity to, and I say this very often, this is part of the managing or the management side of each one of these trades. So again, as I mentioned, when I execute these trades, the trade copier will duplicate the same trade and the same thing that I do in my MT4 account. It duplicates the same thing for you. So I'm going to be managing each one of these trades. So as price is breaking down and approaching that 32 target, I also know that very often it can exceed that, again, because I'm only taking about 2/3 of the actual count when I'm trading it and I'm trying to short it to the downside. And I also trade to psychological levels. So I trade to the 20, the 00, the 50, the 80. Those are psychological levels that I'll typically trade to. And I say this all the time. If you're hands-on and price is breaking right through or going to your target, you can actually trail it a little bit further to see how much more you can get out of the trade. And again, in this case, I was able to trade it to the 20 psychological level. It actually went as low as 17. You can see that it went as low as 1.1717 on this chart. And at that point, I'm done with the trade. That's all I expected. That's all I was going to trade to. Now, let's quickly take a look at this breakdown and the structure here on my Euro futures chart. So this is the breakdown that you see, and you can see the volume. Now, I say this very often, and I get this question. When I'm trading futures, this is Euro futures. This is not the Euro/USD. This is Euro futures. So I'm getting a much more deeper, cleaner, more transparent look at the amount of participation and the volume that's moving into a direction, into a trade. So in this case, we saw this sell-off here after it broke out of the first hour trading range of the London session, and it started to move down. And you can see how these volume candles were really picking up and accelerating quite a bit. There's a lot of volume right here during this selling, as opposed to any of the other previous days for the last 4 or 5, 6 days. This was a really good indicator that I wasn't looking at divergence and expecting some kind of a bounce. I was clearly looking at some kind of a sell-off, and it was going to be a better move. All I had to do was wait for the entry on the point and figure. So again, this is the euro chart. This is the euro futures, and this is true volume. This is not tick volume. I get that question quite a bit. Can you use the MT4 tick volume? I don't recommend using the MT4 tick volume. It does not look the same. It doesn't behave the same. And again, this is euro futures, and I'm looking at volume. I want to see the amount of participation that comes into a trade. So as you can see here, with the information that I'm taking and compiling all to formulate one trade, and then the management of that trade, I'm managing the trade as it unfolds, as it starts to move towards these take profit levels, and then I can generally squeeze out a little bit more out of certain trades because, again, I'm actively managing each one of these trades. I don't walk away from any of my trades. So all of the trades that you get, they're the same trades that I'm executing to fulfill orders in my personal trading account. My trade copier, again, I will trade for you. You don't have to execute any trades to earn profits, ever. So if you're ready, go to my website, go to the purchase page, sign up. As soon as you complete the checkout, you'll be redirected to the members page. In the members page, on that members page, you're going to watch a video that will explain exactly how to install the trade copier so you can connect your MT4 account, and you're going to be ready to go in about 15 minutes or less. And if you ever need any technical support or assistance, I'm always available. So is my assistant, Michael. Thanks for watching this video, and I look forward to trading for you.